Welcome to Global One Media Stocks to Watch. I'm Michael Suido. I'm speaking today with Chris Eager. He's the CEO of Resouro Strategic Metals. They focus on titanium and rare earth metals. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Chris, now Resouro is a Canadian company. Its main project is in Brazil. And just a few weeks ago, you pursued a listing in a third continent over in Australia. Why is that?
Well, we listed the company in April 2022 on the TSXV. And unfortunately, the TSXV and the TSX has been going through a difficult period in terms of liquidity and investor interest in a lot of sectors. There are a number of reasons for that. I think the number of structural reasons, particularly a lot of speculative money was lost during the cannabis boom. The resources market, people are able to raise money there based on flow through if they have a Canadian project. But if you have a foreign project and in the mining sector and particularly in rare earths, there's not a great deal of understanding of rare earth elements in Canada. Whereas in Australia, there's a huge following of rare earths projects, and there's been some very good success stories in Brazil, in Australia, where companies have gone up tenfold on their market cap based on progress at rare earths projects. So we've got a very educated investor base in Australia, and also a lot more liquidity, a lot more trading. So there's a huge arbitrage between the Toronto market and the ASX.
All right, well, the Australian market certainly is known for mining and commodities. And within the past 7 months or so, there are at least 2 other companies like yours that have listed in Sydney and that are also focused on Brazilian rare earth metals, as you mentioned. Now, your listing successfully raised 8 million Australian dollars. Congratulations on that. Makes me wonder why there aren't more Canadian mining exploration companies raising funds down under. If we take a closer look at that listing, how has it been as compared to your expectations?
Well, we did 4 capital raisings pre-IPO over the course of last year in preparation for the listing. So we got some very good mining funds and institutions set in the stock, and a lot of brokers from Sydney invested in the stock themselves. So we developed a very good following in Australia. Day one of the listing, we traded at about a 40% premium on the listing price.
I want to take a closer look at your business now. Resouro's flagship project is in southeast Brazil. It's in a state called Minas Gerais. For centuries, that state was perhaps best known for its gold rush. Today, though, you are exploring for something very different. So set the scene for us. Tell us a bit about the area.
Well, Minas Gerais, the actual translation of the state name is General Mines. And there's also the world's largest niobium mine that produces more than, close to 90% of the world's niobium. And that's very close to where our project is. Our project is just north of the capital city of Minas Gerais, called Belo Horizonte. And this is a very good location to build a project because we're in flat cattle grazing land, so not environmentally sensitive areas. We've got great infrastructure in terms of a railway line which goes to deep water bulk commodities ports. We've got power lines, 500 kVA power lines going through the project area. And we have 450 square kilometres of concessions. Now, we've drilled around 8% of that, 9% of that, and we're going to report our maiden resource statement over that 9% of the total area of this project. The big advantage of our project is that we have a very consistent layer of this material containing rare earths and titanium that's about 40 meters thick and goes on for 71 kilometres. So your listeners can understand that this is a huge project, very, very big project. And what we're finding is our average total rare earth grades are about 3,800 ppm, which is very high compared to other projects. It's a clay style ore body, so very easy to mine, and you rehabilitate as you mine. So you're just taking the layer off the surface and backfilling and then restoring the land to agricultural use. But
If I can just jump in, Chris, for a second, I like the way you describe that, how it's really quite a big project, how a lot of these minerals, metals that you're looking for are actually near the top of the ground, so it shouldn't be that hard to get to. The project, as I understand it, it's early stage. Your company has a 90% stake in it, which you acquired last year, near the beginning of last year. Now, you've been in the industry for about 35 years now. So if we take a step back, what first attracted you to this project?
Well, I've been involved in 3 projects which we've taken from exploration through to bankable feasibility study, and doing all the technical work to prepare the project for development. And one of the major projects I worked on was a copper porphyry project in Peru. Most of my career as a mining engineer and in finance and equities has been in Latin America. This project is extremely large and extremely high grade, and those are a couple of the things which make it attractive. The other thing is that we're in a very pro-mining, sort of very pro-development area of Brazil as well. So you can move the project because it's this near surface layer. It doesn't take much drilling to prove up the resource. It's more like a coal seam. So you've got a very good, very large resource, a lot of upside potential in terms of resource size, and very good grades in a pro-development area. So it's a very attractive project.
Now, as we said, it's focused on titanium and rare earth metals. And for those people who aren't that familiar with those, I mean, rare earth metals are used in magnets, particularly for EVs and wind turbines. Titanium, well, it's used by a whole host of industries because it's strong, yet surprisingly lightweight. You find it in jet engines, in medical implants, much more. I want to get your take, Chris, on the market for these metals. Is there currently enough supply?
Well, the rare earth elements, I mean, the reason for the boom in Brazil, and Brazil is set to supply the world for rare earths. The main reason why there's been a tremendous amount of interest in it is that there's a big push from Western nations to diversify supply from China. Traditionally, China has been the main supplier of rare earth elements, and the rare earth elements that we're mining go into the magnets for electric cars and wind turbines, anything that generates electricity. So in terms of the market, there's a growing market, but also a big desire from European, US, Southeast Asian countries to diversify from supply from China, because it can be used as a geopolitical tool, to cut off supply. So countries can't afford not to have diversity of supply.
So we're seeing that decoupling between the Western countries, between the United States and China. We're also seeing rising demand. I came across a market research, a company called FactMR. They came out with an estimate that says that the market for titanium dioxide should jump 75% over the next decade, and that's thanks to its rising use in paints and coatings. So if we zoom in now on your project specifically, what's the current state of exploration at Tiros? How far along are you?
Well, we've done sufficient drilling, and we're going to announce the resource statement for the project, which means how many tons of ore at what grade is in the project. And as I said, it's a very, very large resource, and we've drilled about 9% of it, but we don't need to drill any more. So we're moving on to feasibility work, which is things like test work to find out how you extract the metals from the ore and produce a concentrate. And we're also working with potential buyers for the concentrate as well. So we want to produce a metal concentrate and sell it to other companies to do the more difficult, conversion of the concentrate to metal or concentrate to magnets. So we will be doing what they call a preliminary economic assessment, which does the mine planning, infrastructure, environmental impact, etc., over the course of this year. So, and we're also applying for trial mining licenses so we can mine large quantities as samples to send to potential buyers of the product. So that's what we're doing at the moment. And that adds a tremendous value to the project and de-risks the project.
Now, you may have already kind of inferred this, but how are you going to spend that 8 million Aussie dollars that you raised in the secondary listing in Australia? How is that going to advance the project?
Okay, well, we've completed in December last year, we completed sufficient drilling to define the resource. And now we're doing the resource statement. We're going to do some closer spaced drilling to define where the first mining areas would be. So that's one. What they call metallurgical test work. So we define what sort of process route is required to extract the metals from the ore. And also environmental impact assessments and infrastructure, all the feasibility sort of work. So it's a preliminary economic assessment, which is feasibility work at a certain order of magnitude study. And then once we've done that, you go into pre-feasibility, which defines a number of ways to develop the project, and then feasibility study and development of the project. So we're moving ahead with that very quickly.
Excellent. One more question before we let you go. We have a lot of young investors who watch this show. I'm wondering, why should they consider putting their money into Resouro Strategic Metals? Why would you say it's a stock to watch?
Well, certainly the quality of the asset in Brazil, it's, as I said, extremely large and very good grade. And, there's an adage in mining, grade is king. So the higher the grade, the more economic a project is normally, without, there's other constraints. But also we're trading at a small percentage of the valuation of other projects, which are probably a little bit more advanced than ours, but very similar in nature. So you've got that revaluation as you go through the feasibility study process. And also we're a new company, so we're getting our name out there. And when people start comparing our project with other projects, we hope to get that revaluation. So it's a very good time right now to invest, I think.
You're saying the stock has good value. And if we take a look at how it's done in your home market in Canadian trade, there's been a fair amount of volatility, yet the stock price has still more than doubled over the past year. Chris, thank you very much for joining us today. And once again, congratulations on that listing in Australia.
Well, thank you very much, Michael, and it's a pleasure to be here.
We've been speaking with the head of Resouro Strategic Metals, Chris Eager, and you've been watching Global One Media's Stocks to Watch. I'm Michael Suardo.